Hello everybody, it's Jax here from the Flying Unicorn. Today I am going to be working on my March Off the Page project, which is a cuckoo clock from Kaisercraft, and I am going to be using the new Tattered Angels paint systems that we have in the store. The one I'm using is called Whitewashed Pine, but we do have many of them. I've got a couple others here. I have the birch and also the opal that I can't wait to play with. So the first thing I like to do when I'm trying out something new is to see the effect it's going to give me in a smaller scale. I live in fear of the day that I completely ruin my Off the Page project. And so I used the offcuts from the birdhouse this time. Here you can see I sprayed and painted on unfinished wood, and it gave me a very muted effect, which is not what I'm going for. So on the other side, I tried several different things with priming it with gesso and later using some glue and seal, or just priming it with gesso, and it gave me a much more dramatic look. So that is what I've done. I have prepped all of my surfaces with a couple coats of gesso, and I don't know if you can see or not, but I really wanted to have some brush strokes in there to create a little bit of a wood grain look. So the first thing we're going to do is use some of the glimmer glaze that comes in the kit called Satchel. It's a beautiful caramel color, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but with any of your mist products or products with glitter in it, it's a good idea to shake them side to side to mix them up. It might seem like it's less important with the glazes and the glams, but I find that I do get less bubbles if I shake it side to side than if I shake it up and down. And I've poured a little bit into my dish here. Just going to give it a stir because it's been sitting there a while. And on the instructions that come with the paint system, it says to go in with a crumpled paper towel. What I found on my test strip is that for a smaller area, going in with a crumpled paper towel gave me much too concentrated color. So instead I'm going to go in with my fan brush, and I'm just going to blot a little bit off on the paper towel first and try and get some grain in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. We are going to be doing several different layers of mist over top. And so I'm just dragging that down and giving a little bit of a wiggle to create some dimension in the project. And I painted this with 2 coats of the gesso. The first one I found that I could still see a lot of the MDF or whatever type of wood it is, and I didn't want that, so I went over a second time. You might have better luck if you were using a heavier body gesso. I was just using the Liquitex Basics gesso. And anytime you are painting a wood project that you're later going to have to assemble, you want to be a little bit careful of the joins. I did paint inside some of my joins, and when I tried to fit the pieces together before shooting this, they wouldn't fit. And so I did have to go back with some sandpaper and with my X-Acto knife and trim some bits off. So if you are painting before you assemble, you may want to either stay away from your joins, or else before you get too far into your project, be sure to go back in and trim it a little bit so that it will fit. And I'll show you in just a second what I mean. But we are getting some nice texture here already from the satchel. And I just absolutely love this color. I've been somebody who's been scared of the glazes in the past because I haven't known what to do with them, but I really like the effect that this gives. So here are a couple of my join pieces, and You can see at the bottom here, I've had to go in with an X-Acto knife and carve a little bit out so that they'll fit together at the end of the day. So while my satchel is still a little wet, I am going to take my beautiful gray Boardwalk Glimmer Mist that comes in the kit and give it a good shake. And I'm just going to spray randomly. And with the Boardwalk, you're not wanting too heavy a coat. It's what's going to give you that silver aged effect. And I'm going to go in while it's still wet and just blot it away a bit so we don't get too heavy a saturation. And you can see there, we're starting to get some really nice texture and wood grain happening. Just give my craft mat a quick little wipe because I can be a little bit OCD that way. And then we're going to go in right away with this beautiful cardboard baseboard, which is a chalkboard mist, and it's a little bit more opaque than the Glimmer Mists. Again, give it a really good shake. And with this one, we're going to go in a hairspray motion quite close and give it a pretty full coverage. And now you can really see the graininess starting to come out that was achieved by doing the base coat with the gesso, and that looks just gorgeous so far. I don't mind if it drips down a little bit or moves around a little bit, because if you look at wood grain, there tends to be some elongated areas along the grain, so as long as you have it all flowing in one direction, you'll be alright. And our next step is, because we're wanting to make it look like weathered birch, we're going to go in with our chalkboard mist. This is something that even if you aren't buying the kits, you can buy just as a 2-ounce bottle in the store, and it will give you an opaque coverage over any of your mists, which gives it a beautiful muted appearance to your color with a little bit of shimmer. Oh. Alright, fumbly fingers. And this one we are going to again do the hairspray motion, but we're going to hold it farther away, about 6 to 8 inches away. And if it's a bit splotchy, that is not a problem. And then we're going to go back in again with our brush, which I have cleaned off here. And we are going to drag it along to again create some graininess. And you can see it's quite wet right now, but we're getting some good effect here. And again, I'm going to let that drip down just a little bit. And give it a couple more brush strokes just where we had the splatter to kind of move that around a bit. And I'm going to give this a little bit of a dry with my heat tool, and I'll be right back. I gave it a quick dry, and it was turning out darker than I wanted, and so I went over it with a little bit more chalkboard, which really brought out the weathered wood look. If you can see down here, you get quite a silver effect from the places that the Boardwalk stain is, or sorry, the Boardwalk spray is, and then more of a brown coming through from the satchel glaze and also the cardboard spray. I'm really happy with the way it's turning out so far. I don't know about you guys, but I get pretty giddy with when the things that I envision in my head actually come to fruition. And so the next thing is to work on the trim pieces, and there are quite a few. There's the 2 roof pieces here, the part that the clock is mounted on, these 2 pendants that look a little bit like feathers that my son actually wants me to put on like pine trees, but I don't think I will. We'll see, maybe. I don't know what I'm doing with them yet. The little porch here with its picket fence and a piece of white trim for the bottom. And it's important to kind of look at the way this goes together, because when I go to paint these next bits, for the porch I know really the most important parts for me to finish are the edge pieces here. We're really not going to see the inside piece. I'm thinking for now I'm going to leave, sorry I'm just picking the little bits of gesso that have come out the bottom and are sticking out off, that I'm going to be leaving the fence white, but we'll see, I might change my mind. But in the meantime, I do want to stain these trim pieces. I'm going to leave the feathers off until I decide what I'm going to do with them. So again, I'm going to repeat the same steps with these trim pieces. The one for the porch, I'm just going to go along the sides, and because I want them to stand out from a distance, I'm going to make them a little bit darker and not use as much chalkboard paint. I might even throw in a little bit of this mercury glaze, which is actually from the, oh, it's fallen all over the place, the Weathered Birch kit, or the Weathered Birch paint system. Since I have it on hand, I might as well give it a go. It gives it a little bit more of a mercury type of look. As you can see here, I used it on my sample, and it's the more silvery gray areas. So I might use a little bit of that just to give it some definition, and give it a dry with a heat tool, and I will be back. Alright, so just finishing giving the fence a dry. I decided I wasn't going to leave it white. It didn't look great against the rest of it. So here's where we're at. I stained the other pieces of the birdhouse a bit darker. I used a little bit less of the chalk ink so that we get some definition, and you can see how it's starting to come together. Not sure if I'm quite happy with the fence piece yet, but I can keep fiddling with that. And I can also always cover it up with a vine or something if I need to. And there, I'll just smear some gesso all over it. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more. Alright, I'm back. I got to a certain point in my project and realized that I needed to embellish some more. I don't know about the rest of you, but I tend to get a brilliant idea and go gangbusters, and then once that part of my project has been carried out, I have to sit back and think about what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to embellish. The main kit for March contains these fantastic little wooden birds, and I used my Tattered Angels paint system to alter one of them for the front of my cuckoo clock birdhouse, and I'm just going to quickly show you how I did that. So the first thing I did was take some gesso and just put a very thin coat on to prime the whole surface. I find that if I mist on naked wood or naked chipboard or anything porous like that, that it just tends to soak it up. And so using gesso as a primer, which is what it's meant for, gets that surface ready to have the mist sit on top of it, which is what I'm after. And while that dries just for a second, I wanted a little accent piece behind the window of my house. So I pulled these Kaisercraft wooden flourish gates out of my stash. I've had them for a while and just really haven't had any project that I've wanted to use a gate on, but they fit perfectly behind the window and just make a very nice little gate. Can you see that there? You don't see all of it. It gets tucked away behind here, but you don't want to get so concerned about cutting up your chippies that you hoard them forever. I'm trying to make way for some of the new CHA goodies, so I am trying to use everything I can from my stash and make some more room on my Clip It Up for new purchases. So for the gate, I just want to use a little bit of the Satchel Glaze, and I'm just going to give it a quick paint. I think I used way too much there. So here you'll be able to see I'll show you in a second when I'm done painting, that because I'm painting on the naked wood, you get a very muted effect, which is not what I was after for the bird. But for the gate part, I just wanted it to have a little bit of contrast in color and not be quite so stark against my painted birdhouse, so this look works for me. So there you go, just a quick coat of the glaze, and you can see that just darkens it up a little bit. There's the untreated, well, a little bit of the untreated side is left, I wasn't very careful, and the treated side, and I just left that dry, and then I adhered it with Glossy Accents, which is my go-to adhesive for heavier things. Alright, and there's the bird. You can see a little bit of the difference about how dark the color sits on top of the bird compared to on the gate. So my gesso is probably not completely dry, but it is dry enough to move on to the next stage. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to lay down thicker areas of gesso where I'm going to want there to be texture, which is basically just on the wings and on the tail. So I'm just going to lay it on thick to start with. And then I'm going to use my brush to add lines in the directions that I'm looking for. And if I have to go back, I'll go back and add a little bit more. And then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a hit with the heat gun. I don't want to dry it completely, I just want to make it a little bit tackier before I apply my mist. Alright, now that that's had a chance to dry a little bit, remember when you're trying to achieve texture in your gesso, the last thing you want to do is put your finger in it to see if it's dry, because, you're going to end up leaving finger marks, but I can tell that the color has changed, which indicates to me that it has started to dry on the top. So now I'm just going to go and coat the whole thing with the cardboard, baseboard, chalkboard spray, and just let it drizzle around a little bit. The gorgeous thing is because of the depressions and ridges in the gesso, the spray is going to get right down in there and give you a lot of nice definition. And then I will just hit that with the heat gun to dry it. There we go. And I want that to be good and dry before I apply my glaze on top of it, because if it isn't, the spray is going to move around a lot more, and also when you touch it and it isn't dry like you will be doing with the paintbrush, you're going to get the gesso rubbing off. So once it's nice and dry, that's pretty well set. So I'll just give my mercury glass glaze from the weathered birch, not from the weathered pine, but the weathered birch, my goodness, kit a little shake. And I'm going to use that just to accent the feathers. I'm not going to use it on the body of the bird. So we're building up layers of color here. There you go. And it also exposes a little bit of the white in the process, which is fantastic because it just, again, gives it that little extra layer and texture. I'm going to hit that with my heat gun again. And I don't know if you can see here, but when the mercury glass is wet, it's fairly translucent and doesn't really look like it has much body to it. But once you get it dry on the project, it really has a lot of shimmer and a lot of depth to it. So now that that's dry, I am going to hit the whole thing with my Boardwalk Glimmer Mist, which is the gray Glimmer Mist, so that we get more of a pigeon-colored bird, but we're still going to keep some of the depth and some of the warmth of the brown that we've laid down. The last video cut out a little bit early. I ran out of memory. This is what the finished pigeon ended up looking like. So you can see all the color that's achieved through using the glazes and the mist together. And here is my finished clock. I did take my 6.5-year-old's advice. He's got pretty good art sense. I did use the 2 pendants for topiaries instead. I've added a couple prima bird nests from my stash, the beautiful vine from the flower add-on, my pigeon and my gate up here. And for the numbers, I would have loved to have some of the new Anna Dabrowska or Finnabair numerals to try out, but alas I did not, and so I've just written them on with black liquid pearls, and it's worked okay. So there you have it. Nice and easy. It's got a beautiful faux stained wood finish, and I'll hopefully have some stills up for you to see.